Welcome back to another live reading with Intentions of a Mastermind Book Club. If you guys would love to become a member, it's absolutely free. You can click the link in the description or the caption wherever you're watching. And do not forget to leave any questions you have that come up during the reading in the comments, and we're going to talk about it at the end of the reading. And of course, follow, like, subscribe, share, all of the stuff. So we're going to be picking up on chapter number 8, ingredients of the success type personality and how to acquire them. So this is actually a really interesting chapter because we're going over an acronym of success. So in our last read along, we did sense of direction, understanding, and courage. And we ended the talk by discussing the difference between the original version and the rewrite, right? There's an updated version that's for sale of the Psycho-Cybernetics book. So this is the original version that was written in 1960. So this one has the word charity, and the new version has the word compassion. So if you have the new version and it sounds different, I highly encourage you to listen to this version instead, because as you guys noticed in the last read along, we went over the etymology, which is the root of the words charity and compassion, and we saw how the energies were very, very different. So I look forward to seeing what the conversation brings up today with our mastermind members. So if you have any questions, like I said, just leave them in the chat below. All right, so principle number 4, or is it characteristic? Let's see, what are we actually saying? The success type personality, okay, is composed of charity, number 4. So it says, successful personalities have some interest in and regard for other people. They have a respect for others' problems and needs. They respect the dignity of human personality and deal with other people as if they were human beings, rather than as pawns in their own game. They recognize that every person is a child of God and is a unique individuality which deserves some dignity and respect. I'm sorry, that was just powerful right off the bat. That was so powerful. I don't know where I put my little stickies at, but it's okay. I'll remember that one. Okay. It is a psychologic fact that our feelings about ourselves tend to correspond to our feelings about other people. When a person begins to feel more charitably about others, he invariably begins to feel more charitably towards himself. The person who feels that people are not very important cannot have very much deep down self-respect and self-regard, for he himself is people, and with what judgment he considers others, he himself is unwittingly judged in his own mind. One of the best known methods of getting over a feeling of guilt is to stop condemning other people in your own mind. Stop judging them. Stop blaming them and hating them for their mistakes. You will develop a better and more adequate self-image when you begin to feel that other people are more worthy. Hey everybody, let me know if you guys have questions about today's reading. Another reason that charity towards other people is symptomatic of the successful personality is because it means that the person is dealing with reality. People are important. People cannot for long being treated like animals or machines or as pawns to secure personal ends. Hitler found this out. So will other tyrants, wherever they may be found, in the home, in business, or in individual relationships. Prescription. The prescription for charity is threefold. Number 1, try to develop a genuine appreciation for people by realizing the truth about them. They are children of God. Unique personalities, creative, beings. Number 2, take the trouble to stop and think of the other person's feelings, his viewpoints, his desires, and needs. Think more of what the other fellow wants and how he must feel. A friend of mine kids his wife by telling her, whenever she asks him, "Do you love me?" "Yes," whenever I stop and think about it. There is a lot of truth in this. We cannot feel anything about other people unless we stop and think about them. Number 3, act as if other people are important and treat them accordingly. In your treatment of people, have regard for their feelings. We tend to feel about objects in accordance with the way we treat them. Number 5, esteem. Several years ago, I wrote a contribution to the Words to Live By featured of This Week magazine on the words of Carlyle. Alas, the fearful unbelief is unbelief in yourself. At that time, I said, of all the traps and pitfalls in life, self-disesteem is the deadliest and the hardest to overcome. It is a pit designed and dug by our own hands, summed up in the phrase, "It is no use, I can't do it." The penalty of succumbing to it is heavy, both for the individual in terms of material rewards lost and for the security and for society and gains and progress unachieved. As a doctor, I might also point out that defeatism has still another aspect, a curious one, which is seldom recognized. It is more than possible that the words quoted above are Carlyle's own confession of the secret that lay behind his own craggy assertiveness, his thunderous temper and waspish voice, and his appalling domestic tyranny. Carlyle, of course, was an extreme case, but isn't it on those days when we are most subject to the fearful unbelief, when we most doubt ourselves and feel inadequate to our tasks? Isn't it precisely then that we are most difficult to get along with? We simply must get it through our heads that holding a low opinion of ourselves is not a virtue, but a vice. Jealousy, for example, which is the scourge of many a marriage, is nearly always caused by self-doubt. The person with inadequate self-esteem doesn't feel hostile towards others. He isn't out to prove anything. He can see facts more clearly, isn't as demanding in his claims on other people. The housewife who felt that a facelift might cause her husband and children to appreciate her more really needed to appreciate herself more. Middle age plus a few wrinkles and a few gray hairs had caused her to lose self-esteem. She then became super sensitive to innocent remarks and actions of her family. Prescription: stop carrying around a mental picture of yourself as a defeated, worthless person. Stop dramatizing yourself as an object of pity and injustice. Use the practice exercise in this book to build up an adequate self-image. The word esteem literally means to appreciate the worth of. Why do men stand in awe of the stars and the moon, the immensity of the sea, the beauty of a flower or a sunset, and at the same time downgrade themselves? Did not the same Creator make man? Is it not man himself the most marvelous creation of all? This appreciation of your own worth is not egotism, unless you assume that you made yourself and should take some of the credit. Do not downgrade the product merely because you haven't used it correctly. Do not childishly blame the product for your own errors, like the schoolboy who says, "This typewriter can't spell." But the biggest secret of self-esteem is this: begin to appreciate other people more. Show respect for any human being merely because he is a child of God and therefore a thing of value. Stop and think when you're dealing with people. You're dealing with a unique, individual creation of the Creator of all. Practice treating other people as if they have some value. And surprisingly enough, your own self-esteem will go up. For real self-esteem is not derived from the great things you've done, the things you own, the mark you've made, but appreciation of yourself for who you are, a child of God. When you come to this realization, however, you must necessarily conclude that all other people are to be appreciated for the same reason. Wow. Just absolutely wow. Number 6, self-confidence. Confidence is built upon an experience of success. When we first begin on any undertaking, we are likely to have a little confidence because we have not learned from experience that we can succeed. This is true of learning to ride a bicycle, speak in public, or perform surgery. It is literally true that success breeds success. Even a small success can be used as a stepping stone to a greater one. Managers of boxers are very careful to match them carefully so they can have a graduated series of successful experiences. We can use the same technique starting gradually and experiencing success at first on a small scale. Another important technique is to form the habit of remembering past successes and forgetting failures. This is the way both an electronic computer and the human brain are supposed to operate. Practice improves skill and success in basketball, golf, horseshoe pitching, or salesmanship, not because repetition has any value in itself. If it did, we would learn our errors instead of our hits. A person learning to pitch horseshoes, for example, will miss the stake many more times than he will hit it. If mere repetition were the answer to improve skill, his practice should make him more expert at missing, since that is what he has practiced most. However, although his misses may outnumber his 10 to 1, through practice, his misses gradually diminish and his hits come more and more frequent. This is because the computer in his brain remembers and reinforces his success attempts and forgets his misses. This is the way that both an electronic computer and our own success mechanisms learn to succeed. Yet, what do most of us do? We destroy our self-confidence by remembering past failures and forgetting all about past successes. We not only remember failures, we impress them on our minds with emotion. We condemn ourselves. We flay ourselves with shame and remorse. Both are highly egotistical, self-centered emotions. And self-confidence disappears. It doesn't matter how many times you have failed in the past. What matters is a successful attempt, which should be remembered, reinforced, and dwelt upon. Charles Kettering has said that any young man who wants to be a scientist must be willing to fail 99 times before he succeeds once, and suffer no ego damage because of it. Prescription: use errors and mistakes as a way to learning, then dismiss them from your own mind. Deliberately remember and picture to yourself past successes. Everyone has succeeded sometime at something. Especially when beginning a new task, call up the feelings you experienced in some past success, however small it might have been. Dr. Winfred Overholzer superintendent of St. Elizabeth's Hospital, has said that recalling brave moments is a very sound way to restore belief in yourself. That too many people are prone to let one or two failures blot out all good memories. If we will systematically relive our brave moments in memory, he says, we will be surprised to see we had more courage than we thought. Dr. Overholser recommends the practice of vividly remembering our past successes and brave moments as an invaluable aid whenever self-confidence is shaken. Number 7, self-acceptance. No real success or genuine happiness is possible until a person gains some degree of self-acceptance. The most miserable and tortured people in the world are those who are continually straining and striving to convince themselves and others that they are something other than what they basically are. And there is no relief and satisfaction like that comes when one finally gives up the shams and pretenses and is willing to be himself. Success, which comes from self-expression, often eludes those who strive and strain to be somebody, and often comes almost of its own accord when a person becomes willing to relax and be himself. Changing your self-image does not mean changing yourself or improving yourself, but changing your own mental picture or your own estimation, conception, and realization of that self. The amazing results which follows from developing an adequate and realistic self-image come about not as a result of self-transformation, but from self-realization and self-revelation. Your self right now is what it has always been, and all that it can ever be. You did not create it. You cannot change it. You can, however, realize it and make the most of what already is by gaining a true mental picture of your actual self. There is no use to straining to be somebody. You are what you are now. You are somebody not because you've made $1 million or drive the biggest car in your block or win at bridge, but because God created you in His own image. Most of us are better, wiser, stronger, more competent now than we realize. Creating a better self-image does not create new abilities, talents, powers. It releases and utilizes them. We can change our personality, but not our basic self. Personality is a tool, an outlet, a focal point of the self that we use in dealing with the world. It is the sum total of our habits, attitudes, learned skills, which we use as a method of expressing ourselves. All right, I'm going to pause here because I'm going to let in our mastermind member, Joy. How are you feeling today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? Hold on, I'm trying to get my headphones straightened out.
Okay, go ahead. I wanted to know if you would be able to read your part in your book that was subtitled Compassion.
Yes, yes, I will. Let me scroll back up.
Go ahead.
Okay, ready? Wait, am I here? Okay, here
Yeah,
we go.
ready.
Okay, compassion. Successful personalities have some interest in and regard for other people. They have a respect for others' problems and needs. They respect the dignity of human personality and deal with other people as if they were human beings rather than as pawns in their own game. They recognize that every person is a child of God and is a unique individual who deserves some dignity and respect. It is a psychological fact that our feelings about ourselves tend to correspond to our feelings about other people. When a person begins to feel more compassion about others, he invariably begins to feel more compassion toward himself. The person who feels that, quote, people are not very important cannot have very much deep down self respect and self regard, for he himself is people. And with what judgment he considers others, he himself is unwittingly judged in his own mind. One of the best known methods of getting over a feeling of guilt is to stop condemning other people in your own mind. Stop judging them. Stop blaming them and hating them for their mistakes. You will develop a better and more adequate self image when you begin to feel that other people are more worthy. Another reason that compassion toward other people is symptomatic of the successful personality is because it means that the person is dealing with reality. People are important. People cannot for long be treated like animals or machines or as pawns to secure personal ends. Hitler found this out. So will other tyrants wherever they may be found, in the home, in business, or in individual relationships. Prescription. The prescription for compassion is threefold. 1. Try to develop a genuine appreciation for people by realizing the truth about them. They are children of God, unique personalities, creative beings. 2. Take the trouble to stop and think of the other person's feelings, his viewpoints, his desires, and needs. Think more of what the other fellow wants and how he must feel. A friend of mine kids his wife by telling her, whenever she asks him, "Do you love me?" "Yes." And whenever I stop and think about it, there is a lot of truth in this. We cannot feel anything about other people unless we stop and think about them. 3. Act as if other people are important and treat them accordingly. In your treatment of other people, have regard for their feelings. We tend to feel about others in accordance with the way we treat them.
Honestly, the only thing that was changed was the word charity to compassion.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty much verbatim the same.
Wow.
But I still feel like it made such a difference of the word that was used. Like knowing the two different meanings of the words.
Yes.
And I love how these last few I guess what would you even call them? Like personalities of like symptoms. That's what he calls them, like personality symptoms. A charity, self-acceptance, esteem, and self-confidence. He continues to highlight the fact that we're all children of God.
Yep.
And continues to highlight the fact that we should be valued, right? We are each valuable, and how that value starts within yourself. And I love how he said in this last one of self-acceptance, it's not about recreating yourself or becoming a new person, right?
Yeah.
It's more of you are recognizing that you are a child of God.
Yep.
You are an extension and expression of Source. And when you recognize that power, you can't, like, most people don't even know the power that they have, because most people do not identify with that idea that, you know, they were created by God, and they have their own ideas about how they came to be. But I think once you understand the relationship that you can create with a higher power, and how that higher power will continue to care for you, you just live life differently. Like, would you give me a little bit more feedback on that? Because I know that you do have a background in the church. Am I right?
Yes. And so, yeah, that as you were speaking, that just came up about how I can frame that from what my experience is. And like, yes, although I learned that I'm a child of God, right, in church, and that God created me, then there's another teaching that seeps in that makes you fear, or not, I don't want to say fear, but it makes you stop aligning with the idea that you have the same creative power as God, as being a child of God, because then that teeters on the idea of thinking that you are a God, and that would be considered to be blasphemous to put yourself on the same type of tier, or or accepting the idea that you have God creative power in you. So it's not even that, like there are some people, like you just said, who have who don't believe that they were, or may believe that they were created in a different way. But even people who are believers in God, and who believe that they were created by God, and believe that, about being made in God's image, still have issues with connecting what that actually means. It means that because you are made in God's image, just like you were made in your mom and dad's image. So it isn't far-fetched for you to look at your child, or to look at yourself and say, oh yeah, I get that from my mom. I get this character trait from my mom, or I get this this part of my physical features from my dad. It's the same exact thing when it comes to being a child of God. You inherit your innate power from your creator. So it's not blasphemous. It's and But I think that it's the emotional part of it, the emotional part of church, and the part of church that is ruled by fear, and the fear control mechanism that keeps people from connecting it.
I actually want to revisit this part in the book. It was in chapter 3, Imagination, the first key to your success mechanism. And it's in the subsection, Know the Truth About Yourself, on page 49. So it says, how can you know the truth about yourself? It seems to me that here psychology must turn to religion. The scriptures tell us that God created man a little lower than the angels and gave him dominion, that God created man in his own image. If we really believe that an all-wise, all-powerful, all-loving creator, then we are in a position to draw some logical conclusions about what he has created, man. In the first place, such as an all-wise, all-powerful creator would not turn out inferior products any more than a master painter would paint inferior canvases. Such a creator would not deliberately engineer his product to fail any more than a manufacturer would deliberately build failure into an automobile. The fundamentalists tell us that man's chief purpose and reason for living is to glorify God. And the humanists tell us that man's primary purpose is to express himself fully. However, if we take the premise that God is a loving creator and has the same interests in his creation than an earthly father has in his children, then it seems to me that the fundamentalists and the humanists are saying the same thing. What brings more glory, pride, and satisfaction to a father than seeing his offspring do well, succeed, and express their abilities and talents? Have you ever sat by a father of a football star during the game? Jesus expressed the same thought when he told us not to hide our light under a bushel, but to let our light shine, so that your Father may be glorified. I cannot believe that it brings any glory to God when his children go around with hangdog expressions, being miserable, afraid to lift up their heads and be somebody. If we have in our minds a picture of ourselves as fear-haunted and defeated nobodies, we must get rid of that picture at once and hold up our heads. That is a false picture, and the false must go. God sees us as men and women in whom and through whom he can do a great work. He sees us as already serene, confident, and cheerful. He sees us not as pathetic victims of life, but masters of the art of living. not wanting sympathy or compassion, but imparting help to others, and therefore thinking less and less of ourselves, the spirit of charity, and full not of concern, but love and laughter and a desire to serve. Let us look at the real selves which we are in the making the moment we believe in their existence. We must recognize the possibility of change and believe in the self we are now in the process of becoming. That old sense of unworthiness and failure must go. It is false, and we are not to believe in what is false. Oh, wow.
Girls, you know, that is so deep. And like that right there, that belongs in someone's Bible study. For real.
honestly. And I don't know, like because the rest of the book is like really trying to, just give this understanding of, hey, like, you can choose to create anything you want, but recognize what you have the possibility to create.
Mm-hmm.
You've been you've been given a great power, and if you're not even aware of what this power is, how can you use it to its fullest potential?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have anything you want to add before we end today's reading?
Yeah, I do actually. One, just that part that you went back to revisit from chapter 3. That's where that cognitive dissonance comes in, where the script gets flipped, and then people are led to believe that it's better to feel sorry and bad for themselves and people because that must be what God wants for them, because they're bad people inherently. They were born into sin inherently. These are all things that are taught early in in childhood in church from that particular doctrine. And it's like when people walk around saying they not perfect, but then they also believe that God makes no mistakes. So again, another example of cognitive dissonance, because if you're not perfect, then clearly the God that you said makes no mistakes made a mistake when he created you, because you're not perfect.
I love the fact that you brought that up, because so many people will try and find an excuse for why their life isn't going right. They don't have the success that they desire, and it's like, pick one.
Yep.
You can't be on the fence. You can't say, oh yeah, God has me in his favor, and God always take care of me. Oh, but I'm not perfect. Life, they try to have this false reality, and it's like, pick one.
Yep.
Pick the one that serves you. Pick the one that helps others. And I
Yep.
love how in that reading too, she talks about it's not to have sympathy, but to serve. And that is truly the essence of the charity and the compassion.
Yes.
So I love it. Okay. Thank you so much, Joy, for being on here.
Thank
and everyone
you.
watching. And I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day.